Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wealth of Distance Education and ENG4C. Today we start on our final week of ENG4C for the 2024-25 school year. Now, there will be a marker who will be coming on this summer. It won't be me, but we have someone lined up so that if you are working on ENG4C, you can still get your marks taken care of, your assessments for your submissions all summer long. Um, so, but that person won't be here to really help you at all. Um, so, if you are working on some of the different topics, activities, and you think that you might need some help, then please contact me um, as soon as you can because I'm not going to be around. Oh, the end of June, most of July. Um, but if you do contact me any time other than that time, I'll be happy to help. So try to get what you can get done beforehand. We're working on the culminating task right now. Actually, these next few assignments, well, the two that we left you with last week, and then the others are basically helping you set up for that culminating activity in the course. So the first assignment, key question that we gave you yesterday, last week, the last day of last week, Thursday, was regarding knowledge. So the four critical areas of this course are, of course, knowledge, inquiry, communication, and, well, what's the other one? Media. Sorry, I said inquiry, but it's thinking. They call it thinking now, and communication, knowledge, and understanding. And finally, I missed one, application. Application the second for application is unique and a little different than the three others, thinking, communication, and knowledge. But we'll have time to discuss that probably tomorrow or the next day. Right now, today we will review key question 2, or sorry, key question 41, activity 2, drafting the knowledge section of the report. What report are we referring to? Well, we did show it to you on Thursday, but I will skim back. This is your reference right here on page 43, ENG4C portfolio. Report demonstrating my achievement of the curriculum expectations for grade 12 college level English. And that's how those curriculum expectations are broken down, right? Application. Basically, what the ministry wants to see is pretty close to 25% for the four different curriculum expectation categories. So, application, communication, thinking, or inquiries, some people call it, and then knowledge and understanding. So those percentages can vary slightly, but generally um, we try to keep them as even as possible. And each of these different categories have uh, s- uh, overall and specific expectations that need to be covered. And there's how you demonstrate your learning by referring to these overall expectations of the course. So, anyways, we're not at the final copy yet, so I'm going to go back to review the knowledge section, drafting the knowledge section, which we did on Friday, of course. Whoop, still way back. What's this? Drafting communication. That's what we are going to look at next. Okay, so here I am on page 17. The section, oh, that's thinking. Whoop, we're not there yet. We are at, there we go, the knowledge section of the report. So, beginning at page 11, the section of the report focuses on the knowledge and content of the course. Discuss what you know now that you didn't know before. In this section, you must make specific reference to at least three of the four items in your portfolio. Use the subheadings that appear below to persuade your audience that you understand the following. Okay, so nice thing about this is it gives you plenty of preparation to go back and check out the various assignments that taught you or where you learned um, how to do certain things in the course. So uh, the first one is conducting research. So the stages of research. And the stages of research are the same in English as they are in chemistry or physics or psychology, right? You go through the same steps, right? You do that. Um, you go through the beginning stages where you um, use mind maps and fishbone diagrams to sort out your ideas. You have to know really what you want to go and research first of all. You have to uh, reflect on what you already know, and that gives you a good place of debark of stepping off um, into the unknown, um, because that's what we do research for. Is it helps to add to what we already know, and then we are able to add what we didn't know, add to what we didn't know, so that we know it. Does that sound confusing? But that's basically how it works. So up here in our neck of the woods, excuse me for using idioms, but they um, seem to fit. Why not use it if it seems to fit? Um, how to determine whether a website is reliable. And the internet is the great equalizer. For many years, we didn't have access to the resources, all the other resources that other people in the country did. So therefore, we were at a disadvantage. But the internet has changed that, and we do have access to a whole host of websites that can tell us, give us information on how to make a Oscar-nominated film to writing a beautiful love ballad, or how to write computer code. Everything's out there, but not all websites are equal. And we have to be able to recognize which ones are reliable and which ones are not. And I did show you a couple of videos near the end of Unit 3 on how to use something called lateral reading, where you could ac- access information on what we call lateral level. That means to check out things like who are the people who are funding this website. That's very important to know, by the way, who is funding a website, who are the supporters. Also, if you want to really know um, if the information in a website is fraudulent, you can go to other websites that assess all websites. I think snoops.com is one of them. Strategies for citing sources properly. This is a very important skill in the future because you will need to do this when you go to college or university. Cite your sources properly. We use APA format here, but that's not the only one that you need to learn how to use. We use APA format because it leans more towards writing reports, which you might run across more commonly in college level courses. But there's also MLA format and a few other different styles. And it's once you've done one, then you can easily transfer what you know into the other styles. You just have to go to a place like OWL Purdue, and they have all of the different styles there, and you can specifically tailor your essay or your report to what your professor has asked you for. And that will be found in, the instructions for your assignments or in the rubric. That's why it's critical that you read through and understand both. If you don't, contact your instructor. How to do an advanced internet search, we went through that. And then, as far as content goes, we dig into some psychology on page 12. Well, it's always good to familiarize yourself with psychology and the language that they use because there's a lot of crossover between uh, academic humanities type of courses. So psychology terms from psychology are used in sociology, and history, English. Um, um, yes, so it's these are you wonder why. Well, why are we learning about psychology in English? Well, it's these theories are widespread, as I said. So we look at the theories of fear because, well, fear and horror are some of the topics that we are going to cover or we covered in the course. So we look at Freud, Sigmund Freud, the grandfather of psychology. A lot of people dispute, his theories nowadays, which is fine. I mean, he lived 100 years ago. And then, of course, we have one of the great horror writers of the last 50 years is Stephen King. Put him up there with Alfred Hitchcock. There's a really good article on the physiology of fear. And they've done really excellent research using all kinds of biometric machinery to be able to understand what happens to the body when it experiences terror and fear. We have the three subgenres of horror. Okay, so this is all stuff that we have learned about. It's all knowledge. The elements of fiction. Of course, narrative voice, right? Now, narrative voice is something that hopefully you might have learned uh, in a previous year, but maybe not. And so it's important to be able to determine the difference between a reliable and unreliable narrator. Also, characters. There's a purpose for creating a round and a flat character. And then realism in fiction. Now, what's really funny is that, the book, we have one of the books there, A Million Pieces. Fascinating uh, tidbit for you is that when the author first published that, he published that as a true story. So it wasn't actually fiction at all. But then Oprah, of all people, did some research on him and found out that a lot of the little scenarios and stories within the story were not true at all, did not ever happen. And he got kind of slammed for that. Um, but it just, as far as we're concerned, it just jumps it in from nonfiction into fiction. He claimed it was nonfiction. That means it was true. Everything was true. Um, Oprah and her minions, her book people, uh, discovered that it wasn't. And he was considered a liar because of that. But it is a good story and it is a good book. It's that except that it's not really totally true. It's made up, like all good fiction. Don't forget on page 12 here how to fully explain your ideas. We've been at you throughout this course to follow this structure here. Point. Begin your paragraph by stating your point. Okay, so what you, could be of any of these subtopics there. Your point is for A here. Oh, I might as well go right to your point for the stages of research are, and in this sentence you might write, the stages of research are, boom, boom, boom. And then you can refer to the actual documents that, or documents, the tables and different tools that you use in your research, and what assignments did you use them in. Okay? Yes. So, for example, in discussing the stages of the research, you might say, in this course, I learned that research is a process that contains many steps. Right. And then you have to give a proof how you need to support that statement. Continuing with the example above, it would make sense to now list the different stages of research. This would also be a good place to include your reference to one of your portfolio pieces. Remember, you need to refer to your portfolio sections throughout the report as evidence of the knowledge or skills you developed. Okay? And then you make a comment following that proof. Don't let the reader lose sight of why you're telling him or her about this. You are demonstrating to your reader how you've grown as a learner. What did you learn from this experience that you didn't know before? Explain to your reader why this is important. And so with research, you will have recognized from this course the importance of going through the research steps, going through the writing process um, for your future as a learner. Continue to use the point, proof, comment strategy throughout your report to ensure that you have developed your ideas fully. Remember, this is a report, so if you can think of a bulleted list or any other type of graphic that will add clarity to certain parts of your report, you should include it. Okay, so we already covered the knowledge-based categories, knowledge and understanding categories. The first three here, I think, yeah, in the rubric. And then we'll go into thinking. Okay, so we talked about the different levels of thinking, remembering, right? So basic type of memory tests that you might run into, and every course has one in college or university. They want you to remember things, important facts, dates, figures, steps in a process. And by remembering them, you can often understand how they are applied. That's what the teacher usually tries to review with you once you know all these basic terms and things like that, how to apply them and analyze them, evaluate them, and then creating. Okay, so these are, and this is called Bloom's taxonomy, and these are all higher level uh, thinking skills. Creating is the highest of all thinking skills, right? You need to know about how to do all of these other skills to be able to create. So, the thinking section that we want to look at today begins on page 17. This section of the report focuses on the strategies that you've used throughout the course and how they helped you with your reading, writing, speaking, or listening skills. In this section, you'll make specific reference to at least 3 or 4 items in your portfolio explain to your audience what the following strategies are and how we use them in this course. Okay, so we got reading, of course, listening, speaking. Okay, so reading strategies, activating prior knowledge, very helpful using a graphic organizer such as a KWL chart, or I read, I think, therefore, skimming, and other helpful reading strategies to help or to put our thought processes together, making connections, visualizing, talking back to the text, and asking questions. So you must integrate all of these into into um, your thinking section. Explain and identify how you used them during the activity of this course. These different techniques for reading strategies, of course. Don't forget, you're still using that same, refer back to it quickly right here, point proof comment for these as well. You continue to use the point proof comment throughout this, uh, the culminating task, completing the culminating task. Um, Listening strategies, choose at least three of the following that were the most helpful for you. Explain and identify how you use them during the activity of this course. Set a purpose for listening. Avoid distractions. Listen for main ideas and supporting details. Asking questions. Visualizing. Making notes or taking notes. And making a judgment. Then we have speaking skills. Choose at least three of the following to explain and identify how you use them during an activity in this course. Making eye contact, using visuals when appropriate, avoiding unnecessary words, speaking clearly, varying your pace and tone, and then, of course, practice. Those are your speaking skills. And writing strategies. Write about all four of the following: brainstorming, using the stages of the research process. How does revising and proofreading your writing improve the clarity of your ideas in your writing? Using templates and examples as models for your own writing. Remember, use the point proof comment as you write this section of the report. Excuse me for a sec. All right, so for today, Unit 4, Activity 3, key questions, that is on page 19. There's actually only one key question. Oh, no, sorry. That is key question 42. Sorry. That is for the thinking section that have been just discussing. Right. And the thinking categories follow the knowledge and understanding categories. If you go down 3, we have 3 for thinking as well. Now we can move on to activity 4, communication. In this activity, you will draft the communication section of your report. We're on page 22, by the way. You will draft the communication section of your report where you will identify the different ways in which you have used communication skills in the course. First, read about and reflect on various components of effective communication, which we'll do shortly. Next, draft the communication section of your report referring to specific activities you completed throughout the course that demonstrate your growth as a learner, and submit your draft to the teacher for feedback and suggestions. What's the success criteria? This is what you need to do. I know I'm successful when I can identify the ways in which I have expressed and organized my ideas. I know I'm successful when I can communicate for different audiences and purposes. I know I'm successful when I can use spelling, grammar, vocabulary, and terminology by reviewing my portfolio selections. I know I'm successful when I can select, organize, and generate content for this section of my report by using the portfolio report template as a tool. I know I'm successful when I can develop my ideas fully using a structure point proof comment. We've been looking at that um, numerous times, but it is very important. I know I'm successful when I can develop clear and convincing or relevant proof of my communication skills by referring to experience drawn from at least 3 portfolio selections. Okay, let's dig into the content here on page 23. Once you have received feedback from your teacher on the thinking section of your report, it's time to draft the communication section. In this section, you will reflect on the communication skills you use throughout the course. Or you can actually, if you have sent in the previous 2 key questions, then you can start right in on the communication section even before you get back your knowledge and thinking key questions. Okay, so especially at this time, we're just trying to get everyone completed before the end of the school year. Graduation's coming up. Often a number of students need ENG4C to graduate. When you are communicating with someone, you have an intended message that you're trying to get the other person or persons to understand. Sometimes the message we think we are sending when we communicate is not the message that the recipient receives. The way in which we communicate can also reveal our values, beliefs, and experiences. Sometimes one form of communication may interfere with another. For example, when speaking to someone, your body language may convey a message that conflicts with the message you are sending with your words. When communicating, whether through speech, writing, or visuals, we want to do everything we can to make sure the message we're receiving or we're sending is the message the audience is receiving. Throughout this course, you have been required to do the following: express and organize your ideas effectively, communicate for different audiences and purposes, use spelling, grammar, punctuation, vocabulary, and terminology effectively. These are all components of effective communication. Think about the different ways in which you've communicated throughout this course. How did the way in which you communicated reveal your own values, beliefs, and experiences? In which activities did you have the hardest time conveying your intended message? What made it difficult for you? What strategies helped you? For example, did feedback from a peer help you organize your ideas in your personal oral essay? In which activities were you more successful conveying your intended message? How can you use what you learned in these activities to help you with the activities you found more challenging? Make sure you look at feedback you've received from your teacher and peers. Take a few moments to jot down your reflections before moving on. Now, have a look at what you'll be expected to discuss in this section of the report. D. Communication. This section of the report focuses on the communication skills you develop throughout this course. In this section, you must make specific reference to at least 3 or 4 items in your portfolio. Persuade your audience that you understand the following. Your personal essay. Remember, we looked at the criteria for an effective personal essay. So, of course, that's going to include, the content, the things that we could write down, but also what we did with this personal essay, we made it an oral personal essay. So there's also things that you can do reading, saying out loud your personal essay that we learned from looking at effective speakers. Graphic text. What's the criteria for an effective graphic? Okay, so some graphics you use in certain situations. Some graphics you never want to use. Depends on how they are constructed. Oh, the next one doesn't really fit here. Blog post, audience purpose, structure, and voice. Well, we couldn't fit blog posts in. Business letter, audience purpose, structure, and voice. Memo, audience purpose, structure, and voice. And a report, audience purpose, structure, and voice. So these are all important components of communication. We must understand their purpose. What are they for? What are they supposed to do? And then they all have their own specific structures for the most part. And then the voice that we're going to use or going to use. And remember to use the writing template or the point, proof, comment to help guide you. If you think a graphic or some form of data visualization will help condense or clarify any of this information, feel free to use one. Are there any questions that you have or instructions that you don't understand? If so, now is the time to discuss any questions or concerns that you have with your teacher. And then we have the key question related to this activity. That is activity 4 on page 25. Drafting the communication section of this report. Complete the draft for the communication section of your report and submit it to your teacher for feedback and suggestions. So just like all of these the previous 3 key questions, right? You need to submit them to your teacher. This is all part of the process that we go through, the learning process, the review process. And then refer to the portfolio report template for formatting content. I did show you that at the back of or the last pages of this unit. The rubric below will be used to evaluate your final version of the portfolio report. But it is helpful to look at the rubric now so that you know the expectations you are working towards, the specific sections of the rubric that are addressed by the communication section report have been highlighted in red for you. Well, they're not really highlighted in red, but here they are, right here. We have 3 of them. Let's look at the level 4. Expresses ideas and information with a high degree of effectiveness. So there's a lot included in that, right? Right. So you you need to be able to write well, speak well, and listen well to be able to express or understand ideas and information with a high degree of effectiveness. And so with writing, of course, you have to have command of the basic grammar that you are going to use as your tools to get your ideas across. Uses the features of a report with a high degree of effectiveness. So a little more specific on this expectation. But we've given you the templates in both cases for both reports, the research report and now this culminating activity. Those are the features and the different topics and subtopics that we want you to cover in these reports are all given. You need to follow these, and if you miss them, right, then you don't get that high degree of effectiveness. You might get a considerable effectiveness or some effectiveness. Provide the draft with a high degree of effectiveness. Report is highly accurate and appropriate in its use of spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So we have the research process, the creative process. That it's all part of the creative process. We have research, we have mind maps, we have being able to sort out our ideas into notes, and then to form all of those notes into a synthesis between what we learned and what we already know to create highly effective, vivid sentences, straightforward sentences that tell our reader what we are actually writing about, what we want them to learn about. Okay. So, in the creative process, of course, then we also have revision, editing, and we have people review to help us review and edit our work. This is really important. There's always someone there to help us. Even if you go to college or university level, there's always someone to review your work for you. Even people who have like doctorates there, they have peers, all their buddies and all their associated friends who work in the same areas, and they review their work as well. And they can, if they see problems with it, they can point those out so they can be fixed. That's how it all works. You don't really work in an isolated place, these days. Okay, tomorrow we'll go on and take a look at application, okay? I think we've covered enough, and so please, as you get these different sections of the report completed, send them in, and I will review them quickly for you. If I see any places that need work, I will comment and then send it back to you, and you can just sit it there, put it into the library storage for a bit until we can, or you can just copy and paste them into the uh, the final culminating task, your portfolio report. So, yes, that's all I'm going to cover for today. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our class today, and I hope you will continue enjoying our class. Well, if not for the rest of this semester, maybe you'll join us sometime in the future. So have a great evening, everyone, and we'll be back on air again tomorrow. Bye for now.